Hello, everyone, and welcome to our playthrough of the Miami Marlins in OOTP 22. I had thought about doing the Pittsburgh Pirates for this challenge, but there are several others out there who are already posting videos on that, so I thought I would try something a little different. And quite honestly, I think the Marlins may be just as big, if not even a greater challenge than the Pirates. They're in a division, as you can see, the NL East, with four big market teams: Atlanta, the Mets, the Phillies, and the Nationals, who have all shown a willingness to spend lots of money. But the Marlins also have a fairly demanding owner, as you can see here, whose patience is demanding, as I mentioned, and also, is expecting a winning record this year. Keep in mind that the Marlins were a playoff team last season, and he's expecting us to reach the playoffs this year in that very challenging NL East division. And in contrast to the Pirates, who are picking first and going to have their pick in the draft among Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter, whoever they want, we're going to be picking with the Marlins in the middle of the first round this year. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. My goal, you can see I have a 3-year, $190,000 contract, is probably to avoid getting fired this first year. I think I want to try to start fixing the team for the long term, and don't think I'm very likely to reach the playoffs. So hopefully we'll not be so bad that we get fired after just one season, and we can keep this going and try to build something. But we're in a bit of a difficult financial situation. Before getting into that, though, we'll just kind of show the settings that we're playing with. No major changes to the global settings, although we are playing in challenge mode, which restricts some of the changes that we can make. We are showing the personality ratings on the profile page. Clicked yes on that. AI settings, this is an important one. We ratcheted the trading difficulty all the way up to the hardest level possible. I think in OOTP, even when you use some of the medium hard levels, you can still generally find a trade that works for you, and the game can get easy at times. So this is meant to keep it as big a challenge as possible for us in the context of a challenging environment anyways, with the team in Miami and a fan base that is not necessarily incredibly enthusiastic about the product that's on the field right now. No changes to the Almanac, the online league, or the database. The league settings, just a couple changes that we have made to share. Changed the reliever minimum batters face to just one. Kind of as someone who grew up as a baseball fan in the 80s and 90s, the loogies, or the one-out lefty guys, had a little bit of a place in my heart, so I want to kind of make that still a realistic option to take place. The options, enabling the automatic evolution, but there's some things like expansion, active roster side, relocation, etc., that I don't want to change immediately. May click on activating expansion after we played a few seasons, but don't want to just kind of get through the 2021 season and then find out there's new teams being added for 2022, because obviously if that were going to occur, we would be aware of something like that at this point. So no real significant changes to anything else as far as the base settings. Looking at the front office of the Marlins, you can kind of see the challenge laid out here pretty well. We've got no money for free agents right now, no money for extensions, a small market with pathetic fan loyalty and pretty miserable fan interest. So it's not going to be easy. And if you look at the projected scouting and development budgets, they were the same as a year ago. But when you dig in a little deeper, you can see that our international amateur free agent budget is only $2.5 million right now. To me, when you're playing OOTP, there's only two logical numbers for this. It's either 5 million or 0, I think. If it's 5 million, one of the kind of tricks to OOTP, if you your scout has an international amateur free agent rated incredibly highly, and you put in that $5 million offer within the first day or two of them being available, seems like you're generally going to get it, 90+% of the time. So, you kind of put $5 million in there to take the best guy and build up your farm system, or, kind of use zero in there. I would say if it's a year that you're under some tight financial constraints and you want to kind of put that money elsewhere. So we're going to switch this to $5 million for the international amateur free agent budget, but you see that we're so far under budget right now that it won't even let us do that. Maybe we'll cut the draft budget down to $9 million and not even going to let us do that. Player development budget $10 million. Well, it'll still let us do that. Scouting, we'll cut that down to $6 million for the time being, but we are going to be going back and trying to change some of these in the short order. What we're probably going to need to do is actually get rid of some players to kind of free up some money so we can invest in scouting and player development. Hopefully not have a completely horrible season. Hopefully if we can at least get, avoid 100 losses, we can hopefully keep our job, even though our owner is looking for a playoff. And we'll also need to kind of take a look at the personnel. As a Yankees fan, it's great to see Donnie Baseball as our manager. Won't be letting him go. But we'll kind of look through some of the minor league systems here, see what the coaches look like, and if there's some obvious upgrades we can make, particularly with the batting and hitting coaches at the lower levels of the minors that we're going to be trying to build up, we'll make those changes. So we'll be back shortly after we've kind of taken a look at what we need to do with the personnel, and then we will report on that and get into what we want to do with the actual roster of the team in terms of trying to open up some money. So we've reviewed the coaching situation, and we've made offers to 3 new pitching coaches in the minor leagues after firing 3 coaches who we didn't think were going to give us quite what we needed. With the coaches that we've added, looking for good relationships with the team, as well as a great ability to coach pitching. Not as concerned right now as to whether the coach is focused on power or finesse or, kind of more of a generalist. But when we start developing talent within our organization, we'll certainly look to kind of have people at the, single A and A+ level, maybe one who specializes in power and another specializes in finesse to kind of put our prospects through the system with people who can most help them reach their full potential. Looking at the major league team, you can see in terms of our staff cohesion, we're decent. A couple issues. Eric Duncan, our hitting coach, doesn't get along all that well with our manager or our first base coach. Don't know that I'm going to make any dramatic changes here immediately, but we'll consider upgrading some of the staff also. But right now, kind of more focused on the minors. Do feel bad for Kimming as the first female GM, and now she has been quickly demoted to an assistant GM since I have taken that position from her. So apologies to Kim, and I'm sure the team would have been more successful in 2021 with you running it than it will be with me kind of gutting this thing to the core. Kind of taking a look at our salary situation. Sterling Marte is the obvious one to consider that could open up some cash for us to begin rebuilding this team a little bit. 32 years old, $12.5 million contract, slightly above average-ish hitter. Plays a decent left field, a mediocre center fielder, not necessarily some great traits for the clubhouse in terms of the leadership there, and is going to be a free agent after this year. If we look at offering him a contract extension, he's going to be looking for, $12.5 million a year for another 3 years, which is what he's being paid right now. Certainly not something that this franchise is capable of paying to a average outfielder, kind of nearing the end of his career and probably at the age where his skills are going to start deteriorating. So he may be an obvious one for us to shop around a little bit as we try to clean things up. Other than that, a lot of low-price talent on minimum contracts, and Corey Dickerson, a left fielder who's just a bit younger, a little better in terms of making contact with the ball. But when you look at the power numbers that he's put up in recent years, not really the typical production that you would want from your left fielder. So there's another one that we may look to try to unload and get something for and replace with a much cheaper replacement level player. You look, and obviously the 2020 season was a shortened season, but the .2 WAR that Dickerson put up, and then even in 19 between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, 1.6 WAR, probably not worth it at $9.5 million for us. So we may look to cut bait with him also, get what we can through a trade, and then try to kind of clean up the financial situation for this team so we can invest a little more in scouting and player development. And you'll see that we've actually already freed up $3.5 million for free agents through some of the cuts that we made to the development budget. But obviously we're going to need to be putting some money back in to support our draft picks as well as potentially international free agents. So we need to make some cuts to the team. That's what we're going to look at now. Hopefully we can get back some minor league prospects. I mentioned that I was on the most difficult trade setting. One other setting that we are on to kind of make things more difficult, we're not going to allow draft pick trades. They aren't allowed in Major League Baseball right now. And, I found that that's one way where you can kind of, take advantage of the AI and build up tons of draft picks and really kind of build up your minor league system unrealistically quickly. So I think between not allowing draft pick trades and being on the most difficult trade setting, we're going to try to make this as challenging as possible and see if we can, ultimately deliver the Marlins their third World Series championship, at which point we'll probably tear down the team like they did immediately after their first two. As I mentioned, we're potentially going to trade our highest priced player, Starling Marte, and not a lot of demand for him. We had to go to retaining 50% of his salary, which is about $6.5 million, just to get any interest. But now we're going to kind of look through our options here and hopefully find a relatively cheap option to trade him for, and hopefully maybe add in another player or two to get the amount that we're retaining lower for this 2021 season to really open up some cash that we'll be able to use to, again, start building our minor league system and hopefully find a replacement level center fielder for him. All right, it looks like we found our trade to get rid of Marte and a big chunk of his contract. We're going to need to retain 35% of his contract, which is about $4.4 million. We're trading him to the Cubs for Jake Marisnick, another center fielder. Not as good as Marte offensively, but he is a little better defensively, and I think we're going to have to try to build a team ultimately with the limitations of our budget that is more focused on defense and hopefully some pitching over time. So this ultimately will allow us to improve our money by about $8 million without weakening us too much. Definitely going to be losing some offense getting rid of Marte, but he's not a long-term part of our answer. Marisnick does have a player option for $4 million for next season. Given that he's only making $1 million this year and is kind of a replacement level type player, there's a good chance that he may opt into that, and we may need to be dealing him a year from now, but we will deal with that when we need to. So make the trade for Marisnick, got our first deal, and we'll add him to the 40-man roster and look to potentially trade another couple of veterans away to really kind of clean up our financial situation and let us start to build. So not a lot of demand for our other highly priced veteran, left fielder Corey C. Dizzle Dickerson, making $9.5 million for a little bit above a replacement level player with the very difficult trade setting. You can see the only things being offered to us in return are veterans Johnny Cueto, Evan Longoria, and Roughneck Odor on pretty difficult contracts for all of them. So this one is going to be a little trickier. We may try to retain a bit of his salary, see if that gives us an opportunity to get some prospects instead, since none of those three players being offered to us right now are all that interesting for a rebuilding team such as ours. Changing the settings to, retain 100% of his contract just to kind of see who might be out there. It's taken a while here, and we've got a lot more options there. You can see a lot of minor league people. So we'll dig through this, kind of find if there's anyone interesting with some longer-term potential that we can potentially trade C. Dizzle away for, and then we'll probably need to add in a prospect or two on our end just to make sure that we're, actually getting some salary benefit from letting him go, because we certainly don't want to be retaining 100% of that given the precarious budget situation we're already in. And I think we've got our next trade lined up as we try to open up some cash. It's a little more painful than the last one. Getting rid of Corey Dickerson, who's probably our best pure hitter. Again, not saying much given the weak lineup we have. And then Anthony Bass, a decent veteran reliever. We're going to have to retain 50% of Dickerson's salary, but we're trading him to the Tigers for a younger outfielder, Nomar Mazara, who, hopefully will start for us next year and could develop into someone who's with our team for several years at his salary level and his age. Kim has made it clear to me that she can't think of a good reason to accept this offer. But again, I think she's thinking about winning right now, whereas I'm thinking about not necessarily tearing this thing down to the studs, but opening up some cash to kind of rebuild the team in my vision rather than the one that her and my boss, Mr. Jeter, have been working on for the next few years. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this trade also. And you'll see that the trades getting rid of our two biggest contracts, as well as another sizable contract in Bass, have opened up, over $15 million in money for free agents. Now that's going to be lower when we kind of fix our scouting and development budgets and set aside some money for our draft picks, but at least now we are have the flexibility to kind of make some changes and begin kind of building up our minor league system the way we want. So I think with that, we're going to call it a wrap on this first episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Would love to hear some feedback from the group, thoughts on things that we may want to do differently. I will touch base again after we've made some final changes and moved into the regular season. Before I do that, just one more thing to note. Had thought about kind of changing up our scouting director, but he's actually pretty decent. DJ Svilik. Good, excellent, good, and good, particularly, in scouting, amateurs, and international, good with both of those, and excellent for us looking at minor leaguers. And our trainer is also decent, good or excellent everywhere except fatigue recovery. So given that these guys are both on contracts for the next several years, figured it probably makes sense to hold on to them. But we'll take a look at that also and let you know what I decide. Thanks again for watching, and hope to be back with the beginning of the season shortly.